So, good evening. Today is January 3rd, and I'm calling to order the Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023 DRB meeting for the City of Burlington. We have a quorum. Jeff is recused from two matters, so hopefully we get a fourth member for that at this time. If not, we'll have to deal with that when it comes up. But as of now, we've got a quorum and we can commence working through our agenda. First item is communications. I think all current or recent communications have been posted online. There's no additional ones for us tonight. Right, Mary? Or Scott? Joe? All right.
Scott, all communications have been posted?
Yeah, I posted something for 800 Pine Street this afternoon. There's just some supplemental information from the applicant for that. But yeah, it's posted.
Okay. Minutes. I have to sign the last set of minutes, but I don't have any changes for that. I think we should move those to our deliberations from now on. But we don't have any consent items, so the first item on our agenda is 170 Park Street, ZP 22596. Arena, and I'm going to say the name incorrectly. I apologize for that, so I'll let you do it when you come up to testify. And there's ZP 22596 and ZAP 22-5, both concerning 170 Park Street, and so we'll hear those together. One is a variance for additional lot coverage, and the other is an appeal of a zoning application denial to install gravel extension to existing driveway and rear parking lot.
I think the second one is,
Well, no. Yeah, it's not. Scott, do you want to clarify that for us?
So the appeal, let's see, I think the appeal is moot. But the quick backstory is the administrative permit was denied because it exceeded lot coverage. The appeal went to the DRB maybe a month or so ago.
Right.
The applicant submitted a revised site plan that I hadn't looked at it yet. DRB continued the hearing to allow time to look at that. I looked at the site plan. It was approvable. So the administrative denial turned into an approval. The appeal period has run on that approval. The applicant initially requested withdrawal of the appeal, which made sense to me, but shortly thereafter requested leaving it pending. I don't know why, but it's on the agenda. So you have an appeal before you tonight.
Okay. I remember this, and I remember the continuance to try to figure this out. Is the applicant here? Where are we having the testimony over there? Do you want to step up and I'll swear you in? We'll take testimony on this. So, do you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear that the testimony you are going to give in this matter under consideration is true to the best of your knowledge under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. So, could you just explain to us the revised site plan and tell us what's going on?
Yeah.
just, which one are we on right now?
Well, I think
Application.
what I was thinking is let's see the revised site plan and understand that to see if we're okay with it, and then I think we can talk about whether or not the appeal is moot. That's what I was thinking.
So this is the site plan to the variance request. Is this part of the site plan notice?
Well, that's a good question.
We can start from here.
I guess I want to ask it this way. What site plan would you ask us to approve tonight?
This one,
This one.
variance, yes.
Okay. Let's start with that one.
Okay, so we did get the, and also I want to say that it initially was submitted as gravel parking extensions, but congratulations to everyone. There is no more gravel. Gravel has been removed. So as we speak, someone is leveling the soil now, and then it will be seeded in the spring. Gravel is no longer there. I wanted to do that. We got very lucky with the weather in January that we were able to do this, which is a blessing. And I wanted to do that prior to this hearing because I felt that gravel as a material was shifting focus from what we are trying to do here. It doesn't have to be gravel at all. What we are trying to solve is the unsafe parking situation in the back of the house and kind of in between two houses. The plan that did get approved, that we are very grateful that it got approved. I still have concerns. It is still very tight. On that plan, I'm sure you can see that on your computers. The car A is at 90-degree angle, very close to the house. And my concern is that it can be sticking out too far, blocking the passage for the other cars. Also, what is not shown on this plan, is it okay if I walk up there or no? Okay, I'll stay sitting.
You can walk up there,
Okay.
sure. Yeah.
So this site plan, I
You
actually,
used to have a laser pointer.
I have my bag. I actually had a professional architect draft this, as you can see, this is from my
Yeah, yeah.
attempt. So what she did, what is really appreciated, she showed here the situation with the shared driveway. I checked every house on my block, and it looks like every house on my block has a private driveway except for mine. Mine has a shared driveway with the neighbor house. Our guess is a very good relationship with these owners. Our guess is that back in the day, this used to be one property, and then it got divided a little bit weirdly. But I ended up having, so the driveway itself is 12 feet wide. I ended up owning 8 of those 12 feet on my property, so it's not divided in half. I own 8 and they own 4. This driveway is paved, which is true that most of the driveways in my block are ribbon gravel, which is not the best for stormwater, but it is good for lot coverage. Here, we have paved, so all of this counts as lot coverage to my lot, to my property. And so here, what is not shown on this plan is that here is the neighbor's, here is the neighbor's garage. It's actually a little bit wider, expensive one. It goes deeper into the backyard. First of all, it looks like it's right on the property line. There's no setback, which makes it even tighter to get in under a very challenging angle here. And what's not shown here, what happens is, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
About,
Is that touchscreen? That's a nice.
about 4 by 4 area here, say, like on the right, when you drive in, it's kind of right in front of you. This 4 by 4 area gets occupied by the neighbors from this house. They use it in winter for garbage can, which is fine, and in summer they use it for carpet bag. So that further blocks the passage here. And with having a car here as it is approved now, which is fine, we'll try to make it work, but I have concerns that, again, it just, like Scott mentioned last time, the one problem we solved is that the cars are no longer in tandem, but the challenging angle still remains, and cars still have to back out. And remember that we are backing out, it's a long way to back out, and we are backing out on the Park Street, and this is the block where cars just get off the highway. And so even though there is a speed bump there, they go very fast. They go way faster than 25 miles. the property damage. It's pretty significant. It was there when I bought it and 3 years ago, and it still happens to this day. Just 2 weeks ago we had a door installed, and they hit a house again. Because there is not enough space to reverse right now, and there is not even enough space to maneuver safely or to even see where you're going, which is very scary.
That's okay.
Yeah, so that's the neighbor's house. It got a little damage, and then there is one in my house. Not this one. This is mine. So it gets hit every time by any stolen vehicle, and then removed truck. It's not a safe passage, to say the least. So, thank you. Thank you. So I guess we can go back to the plan. Thank you. I think I've listed all main reasons while Scott is pulling that up. I want to say that I went through a couple of iterations. I've been thinking how to make this work for 3 years since I've owned the property. Right now, because this pavement is taking away a lot of our lot coverage, and we really have pretty much no room to work with, no percentage to work with. Basically, no matter what you do here, if you have 3 cars, which is a minimum, because we have 4 bedrooms and actually 4 cars, but only 3 here. No matter what you do, it's too short here in order for the cars to reverse or at least have more space. Let me see here. Right. So, right now, if this variance doesn't get approved, the only kind of legal way to make this happen is to remove this asphalt, right? And that will give us lot coverage. To remove this asphalt, replace it with ribbon driveway, and that will give us extra 200 square feet.
So wait, can I ask about that?
Yeah.
And this, I think, is also something that Scott will want to comment on. But ZP 22-505 was, we heard this, I remember, back in December. And then you submitted a revised site plan that staff approved, Scott approved it, that seems to have 40% lot coverage in 3 spaces. Scott, am I right about that, right?
Yeah, you're correct.
And so that would address the lot coverage issue and the prior appeal that we were dealing with, right? But that's not that site plan that you're dealing with. And the one that you're referencing, Arena, has more than 40% lot coverage?
Correct, this is for the variance. So with the variance, so with 40%, as we are now, with a different plan, we're at 40% sharp. We've used every inch we could so the car A will be here, car C will be here but closer, and car B will be here in the middle. It fits, at least on paper. Again, I can't guarantee how my tenants park their cars. But they still have to back out of it, and it's still tight.
Just to verify, the reason for this other plan is that it's better to maneuver than the other plan that was approved.
Yeah. Yeah, correct. So I listed the reasons here. Is that it's safer, it gives the ability to reverse, it eliminates the risk of further property damage. It also saves the tree. Here is the lovely lilac tree that I love, and we'll have to cut it if with the current plan, which is fine. We'll, we won't be able to move it entirely. I talked to someone. We'll just have to cut like half of it. So we'll keep the tree, and mainly we will eliminate the need for the unnecessary earth disturbance of 600 square feet here, because this is something I have to consider right now. I did take quotes from excavation people, how much this would cost, because right now this seems to be the only like approved by the city solution to kind of, in order to push the cars a little bit further here, and we only need 47.5 square feet is what I'm asking in this variance. So in order to get that, right now the only way to do that is to excavate 600 square feet of perfectly fine asphalt that can be there for another decade, and we really don't want to do that.
We have very high standards in approving variances. Traditionally, I'm looking at your plan. I have to ask, I feel like I have to ask, the shed, if that wasn't there, you'd have your lot coverage and we wouldn't have to issue a variance, right? Am I doing my math right?
True, or if we cut the house a little bit.
No, but I mean, like, it's just a high standard for us, so yeah. Okay. Essentially, the theory is this plan, you have, I'm trying to summarize, a legal 3-space parking plan that was approved with lot coverage, but this lot coverage plan, this plan that you're showing us now, you believe is better for safety, ingress and egress, and overall maintenance of the site.
Correct, and I can explain how exactly. So basically what we're doing is we're pushing this car C just 3 feet deeper from 12 to 15. And those 3 feet here are giving us enough wiggle room to change the angle of these two cars and push them closer together. That gives us extra 12 feet here. So this entire line is 30 feet. These two cars will take 18. 12 stays here. 12 is the excess aisle width, as I have learned, requested for the cars to drive in and out of the driveway. So with this 12 feet platform, basically here, every car has a choice to reverse, has the ability to reverse. And I tried not to overwhelm you here with all the tracks. However, William Ward highly recommended use the car tracks, and that's what did the trick, I think, last time. With Scott approving the previous one. So here, if you follow the purple tracks, you can see how the C car can go like this and then reverse. It might take an extra turn, like a K-turn, and that's totally fine. Then same with the blue car. It will go like this, straighten out, use this as a back out, at reverse. And the car A is the easiest because once it pulls back, then it has all this space to reverse. So it can do this, another K-turn, and move forward instead of moving back with no visibility. Now, I understand everyone discouraged me of coming here and asking for the variance, including Scott, who told me this is not going to get approved. However, I did talk to William Ward, and he said that if it's small enough, the board might approve it. And so we're basically at a choice whether we're allowed to push the cars a little bit further. And I want to say that my backyard is giant. It's huge. There's plenty of green space. Like I said, all of this will be reseeded in the spring. We have more large trees than any other yard I can see. And before you deny, I would like to hear from the board what is the rationale behind the 40% lot coverage. And what we can do, how we can compensate for it. I've been trying to understand this for a very long time. So if it's stormwater, we can talk about solutions. If it's green space, we can talk about solutions. Well, we have plenty of that. We're currently planting a whole new tree. Please don't tell me I needed a zoning permit for that. But it's happening. So what else could be the rationale? I'm not sure. But once I know it, I'm sure we can have a conversation here.
I think the rationale in passing lot coverage requirements is to ensure that, in this case, 60% of the lot is impervious green space. And the rationale is to create a uniform look in certain districts between how much yard or lawn exists and how much building or pavement exists. Where that was originally put into the zoning ordinance, I don't know, but the rationale for lot coverages is to maintain a certain ratio between pavement and building and lawn and green space. I appreciate your presentation. I think it's well said and certainly gives us something to think about. Are there any questions from members of the board?
I will just comment. I have a place where I can drive down, I can throw my cars around, drive out, and it's tight, And sometimes, depending on how many cars down there, it's like a 28-point turn to get out of the driveway. The issue is the 40% is there and you have options that you actually don't have to exceed the 40%. There are options that you don't like, but there are options. You don't have to take out 600 square feet. You don't have to take out 100 square feet of the driveway.
So is this the option the city would rather like?
That's what we're gonna.
Meets the zoning requirements. It's not a question of liking or not liking. It's what complies with the zoning ordinance, which is what we're bound to.
We have very limited abilities, and, we'll debate it, we'll discuss it in our deliberation.
Yeah. Can I just add?
It's not always a decision that, many times we're constrained by the ordinance, and it gives us something to think about as to how to move forward and deal with. One could see an inclusion in the ordinance that allows us some ability to, vary lot coverage for safety reasons, but, it's not quite there today, so.
Yeah. Can I add in closing?
Yeah, by all means.
So yeah, I hear you. This is existing option. It's not good because it's between two houses. It's a shared driveway. It's not clear how legally this is doable. And also, when I made a mistake, one of the biggest mistakes in my life, dumping that gravel in my backyard. Because your website doesn't say you can't. And the main concern that I heard with that was the climate change and how unsustainable it is, which, is not necessarily true for the gravel, because gravel actually has some benefits, definitely benefits over pavement. But either way, so it sounds like with current ordinance, the city would rather have us dump 600 square feet of perfectly fine asphalt on the landfill than let us push the cars 3 feet deeper into the green backyard, which I repeat again, the gravel is gone, so this will be stormwater friendly plastic grade pavers or turf pavers or whatever the city prefers. There can be moss under the cars that will grow even under the cars. There can be grass. We can seed whatever the city wants us to seed. I'm just putting it out there that I'm open for negotiation, and I've been trying. This started September 1st, and I haven't had a lot of third partnering, unfortunately, from Scott specifically. Hi, Scott. The only solution I was offered was to withdraw the application, take everything back, and live with it. But I'm trying to have a conversation here and to find a solution that will truly satisfy everyone. And I believe that it is somewhere on the surface, and we can find it. Yeah, I would love to hear what the city and the board mainly, what suggestions you may have.
I apologize for my late entrance. Did you already discuss the shared driveway?
Yeah. You mean with the owners or here?
Just keep.
Yeah, I did hear, and with the owners, by the way, who are supportive. They said they attached their comments. By the way, we have 6 comments and 1 big letter from the neighbors supporting this extension. Because I'll further say that these neighbors actually, by the way, have about 95% lot coverage. I'm trying to understand why that is allowed right next to me. And they have a garage and they have a parking spot here. And this car, when it backs out, it uses our backyard to back out, which I'm fine with. I'm not bad about it at all. And I want them to be happy and continue doing that. And so they're lucky because they have more wiggle room than we do. And with the currently approved parking space, it will be sticking out all the way here. And so they might have trouble making out as well. So it's basically 5 cars involved in this situation. And everyone will benefit from this being extended, especially given that all of this is unused green space. And these neighbors, owners and the renters, sign a protocol.
Well, I thank you for that. Is there anyone here in the audience to speak on this application? All right, well, with that, we'll close the public hearing on these items. Thank you. I appreciate your presentation tonight. About this application? Oh, yes, that would be when I asked for public comment. Yeah, that would be the public. Go on, hold on. Come on up to the microphone. I have to swear you in. Would you raise your right hand? Yes. Do you state that the testimony you're about to give under under this item is true and correct under the pains and penalties of perjury? I need to memorize that.
Yes.
Okay, so please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and then.
So my name is Carol Zina, C-Z-I-N-A. I live at 14 Myrtle Street, and I live in the property that on Myrtle Street, it goes back and runs along the edge of neighbor's garage. And it's a very small lot.
Okay.
So there are actually 2 lots on Myrtle Street from neighbor's garage to the east edge where the shed is. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So where it says legend, divide that in 2. There's 2 lots there. I'm the one closest to the neighbor's garage. So my concern has been that a car that is parked that close to my garden and apple tree, and I eat the food from those, that car fluids will come into my yard, which is a composted yard. I mean, it's hard to keep grass growing in the Old North End. It's all sand. And I've spent 20 years living there, putting composted soil into that property, and I am very concerned about car fluids coming onto my property. That car number C it's practically in my yard. I mean, it's like, how wide is that little area there? It's 5 feet. So that car is 5 feet from my gardens, my apple tree, which I eat. I have a concern about that.
You should Car C.
car C. That one where your arrow is right now, that's my property. Yeah, so where that white thing is, I believe that was an Airstream trailer that was illegally parked there for a period of time. I believe the car C would be where that white object is, which I believe is the Airstream trailer. And that Airstream trailer was right in my face. I mean, I look out my back window, there's the Airstream trailer. Probably should have complained about it at the time. I knew it was a temporary situation and didn't complain at that time. It was also during the winter, so different.
Where's that apple tree you're talking about?
The apple tree is right where your arrow is now. There was a big pine tree there that was taken down and replaced with an apple tree. And the soil was dramatically amended. It was dug up. It was, I mean, the amount of compost I put in there is massive.
So that apple tree, I guess this is a 2021 image you planted that recently.
It's been there about 15 years now.
This is a very old image. That trailer
Yeah.
was there
Hold
when
on.
I bought the house.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
The tree might be small there. It probably wouldn't have shown up if that was 10 or 12 years ago.
This is an April 2021 image.
Yeah, that tree would have been tiny then. Anyway, so I'm happy to hear that there's less gravel. There was still gravel, a ton of it, out there this morning, and I took photos. So I do hope it's gone. I have been very disturbed by the way this whole thing has come about. We just don't do this in my neighborhood. We all know each other, we all care about each other, we all share vegetables and apples over the fence, and actually I've shared with her as well, and it's just very
I'm
sad.
sorry. I don't think I'm gonna go down that road.
All right,
I think that's sort of unfair on how this came about. I'm just gonna stop that because
Okay.
we've had an applicant come before us several times trying to make a good faith effort to deal with her
And
parking
I wasn't allowed to
situation.
speak the last time either, which I was very disappointed in. Just want to point that out.
That's because we continued it to this meeting to let the applicant.
I think I'm done speaking, thank you.
Can I respond to the concern?
Which concern?
Also,
Briefly.
So ironically, this might come as a surprise, but I don't own a car. I've never had a car in my life. I do live very sustainably, and I do understand my neighbor's concern. I am actually right now in the market of buying a car, and the reason I'm not is because I have nowhere to park it at the moment. And I'm actually looking at the electric car. And the specifically spot C would be ideal for the electric car because further down the line, this is the spot that would allow to build a solar carport, which my neighbor will probably complain about as well. However, it is a very sustainable solution if fossil fuels is the concern. And also there are cars parked on every other property very close by. And I know that Carol drives gas car herself. So this can be solved with the electric car. And also I know that Carol won't be happy about that, but we tried to talk about this earlier, that I can see a lot of personal frustration and where's Carol? Hi. I do think that a lot of that has to do with the taste. For example, I was told that everything is ugly, I have to take it out, but at the same time, the immediate neighbor next to Carol's house on the Myrtle Street actually complimented my yard and said he was standing there taking it in. So it's clearly the matter of taste. And I think that a nice privacy fence will solve that problem once and for all. it is not an active zoning application right now, but it's eventually it will have to happen because being harassed on my property is not something that is a pleasure to take. So
Yeah,
that is
I just
solvable.
wanted to keep the testimony focused on the issues that we have. Neighbor
Yeah.
relations are very important, but I did ask your neighbor not to go down that path, and so I'm going to do the same for you.
True. So the fossil fuels can be solved with a electric car in the spot C, and the visual can be solved with the privacy fence.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else in the public here to comment on this application? No? All right. Well, then I will close the public hearing on these two agenda items. Yeah, Jeff, you're recused. Hang out. You'll hang out. All right. So we will deliberate after this meeting on this agenda item. All right. So we have, and I guess this is a question that I'll deal with on the agenda item. Next up are two certificate of appropriateness items. Can't read tonight. ZP 22608 and ZP 22611. I'm assuming they'll be handled separately. One's for 800 Pine Street, after the fact tree cutting associated with ongoing maintenance of stormwater pond by the city school department, with Mr. Sherrod as the listed contact. And ZP 22611 is for 834-922 North Avenue, after the fact tree cutting associated with stormwater outfall repair, and that's the City of Department of Public Works with Mr. Schramm as the contact. So Scott, we handle these separately, is that right?
That's correct. They're two separate properties, separate but I'll say related applicants.
Right. Related, yes. So I guess we'll do the city school department first. Is that Mr. Sherrod? Is he here? Want to come up? Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you will give today under the matter in consideration is true and correct under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
All right. Would you just introduce yourself and explain what we're being asked to approve tonight?
My name is James Sherrard. I'm the Stormwater Program Coordinator for the City of Burlington. Nice to meet you all. It's my first DRB. This specifically is with regards to maintenance that's happening at what we call the 08 pond. It's a stormwater treatment pond here in the city. I do just want to mention, I think the school department was listed. This is on school department property, but the stormwater program was the one facilitating the work. When this pond was built, there was not as much vegetation on the northern side. That purple rectangle is what we asked the contractor to clear. The reason we asked the contractor to clear that is because there's a fence line along the private property boundary with, I want to say, around 9 parcels. That fence is the stormwater program's responsibility to maintain and upkeep as part of the 08 pond stormwater system, and it had overgrown to a point where we couldn't access it. So we're planning and still in the process of implementing or moving forward with a dredging effort, the removal of the sediments that built up in the pond over time. And as part of that effort, we're going to have contractors on site. We're going to be having a lot of heavy equipment. It was a good time to also do vegetation removal. So we're here because we awarded the project and the contractor was supposed to start in October and did this tree cutting in early September. I will just say again, and I've said this to a number of the adjacent parcel owners, we're really sorry we didn't reach out. It was every intention of the stormwater program to reach out, but the contractor moving up the date didn't facilitate that, so that's unfortunate. So we're here today for us to get the after the fact approval for the vegetation clearing.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know if this question is for Scott or for the applicant. But we have also, coincidentally, the citywide tree maintenance plan guidelines up for renewal, I guess I'm trying to say. And that plan sets criteria for you to be able to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
So, is this before us because the plan is expired? Or is this not within the guidelines that that plan normally has?
I'll answer your question, but kind of indirectly. When we realized that the tree maintenance approval was required, I started contacting Mary, my go-to, the zoning, and she said, there is this tree maintenance plan that used to cover this sort of work universally. That's actually where I discovered the plan, and within our Water Resources Division, Mike being part of that team, we started pulling together an updated tree maintenance plan, which had expired 2021, I believe. So once we realized this was something we had to do, and that the old way of doing it had expired, we started the process of updating that.
So, 2 years from now, if this happened, you wouldn't have to come before us because this would probably be within the guidelines.
We wouldn't have to come to you. According to the way we've laid out the tree maintenance plan, which we can talk about in more detail together later, we would work with the city arborist, and once they gave the go-ahead, we could move forward with this maintenance.
I was a little confused on that. I just wanted to get clarified.
One beget the other.
This is a question for Scott. So Scott, your staff notes talk about some missing information. Wildlife habitat, riparian buffer, those kinds of questions. Has that supplemental information been provided to you?
James provided a little extra information through the permit system earlier today that I posted.
Okay, so that's the applicant comment supplemental.
This is James, as well as the board's opportunity to get into those criteria.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Yeah.
Scott, when you say get into that criteria, do we get into it, because we've got these 3 interconnected applications before us. Do we get into it with this application, or do we get into it when we're actually talking about the maintenance plan?
What's our
So the
remedy?
maintenance plan is totally independent. To back up a little bit, Brad, to answer your question, the short way is these 2 applications are in front of you tonight because the prior plan expired. So each tree cutting at 800 Pine and then the one on North Avenue need separate zoning permits. And each one requires DRB review under the criteria of whatever section that is in Article 5. The one on North Avenue is pretty cut and dry and spelled out. This one, the application didn't have a whole lot of detail as to why the clearing was necessary for the stormwater pond maintenance. James touched on that a little bit tonight. It's really up to you as to how much detail you want to get into for addressing those criteria.
And Scott, I want to understand that tree clearing incidental to a development that is approved doesn't need its own zoning permit,
Correct.
right? So if you get a permit for a house or a garage and that requires cutting down 20 trees, that doesn't require a separate permit. It's when the clearing is done.
Well, it's reviewed together.
So, James, you talked about the pond going through some upgrades or improvements. Does that need a zoning permit? Is this clearing incidental to that? I'm a little confused.
So the pond maintenance doesn't require zoning approval, it's just maintenance.
Okay. So it's not like an expansion of the pond or redevelopment of the pond, it's just normal maintenance that you had hired the contractor to do, and then they got, I don't want to say aggressive, excited, and went ahead and did the clearing. Generally, correct, am I understanding that? It's not like you're rebuilding the pond, making it bigger, building a new forebay, or anything like that.
No, none of that was part of this particular effort. However, the pond being completely encircled in fencing was part of the original needs for the pond. It is adjacent to Champlain Elementary, which is one of the areas, one of the sides of fencing. But then for the homeowners, it was fenced off as well. So thinking of this system as one contiguous unit of, in order for the pond to be there, we needed a fence, we need to maintain the fence. We couldn't maintain the fence. That's why we partnered the two together regarding both the dredging effort and the fence maintenance.
Is that pond a wetland or has any wetland buffer associated with it?
It's not a wetland. It's a stormwater facility, which often can look like
Or
and
can become?
can become functionally with an expansion of wildlife. I've been out there a lot, seen frogs and raccoons and a number of other things, including herons. Stormwater ponds have that benefit, but they never become a wetland in the eyes of the state nor the city, to my understanding.
Old ones have. Is there any idea, any ability to replant some of that after the work is done to sort of put more privacy between the neighbors and
Yep.
the facility?
Actually, we've already started that process. So once the tree clearing happened, I believe started on September 8th. I got up there September 9th. Actually held off cutting a couple of the more mature trees, although most of the damage was done. Since that time, I brought the city arborist out, walked the site, so he could get an understanding for the particular soils and what sort of trees would do best back there. Got a list of appropriate trees to be replanted, sent that list to the neighboring parcels, again, the 7 or 8 or 9 parcels directly north that share a fence line, and asked them all to pick a tree to be planted behind their home. We did have a deadline for them to respond. Not all responded, but those who did have picked a tree that will be planted ideally this coming spring after we replace that fence. That fence has gotten to a point where it needs to be fully replaced. We'll do so in kind.
That sort of fence that we see in the ground.
Yep, yep. So that process has started. If more needs to happen with outreach, we'll happily take a suggestion, but I think we've done what we can at the moment.
Do you know what type of trees they were?
One was swamp oak. I didn't bring that info. I could pull it up in this meeting.
Were any rare tree species, tree species?
Not to my knowledge. Again, Vijay Kamai, the city arborist, he listed about 5 common ones he thought would do well in this particular area. I don't know enough about.
Were any of the ones taken out?
Another good question. So what we discovered when we got back there was that at the time of this pond construction, someone did have the foresight to plant what I believe were red maples. They planted maybe 8 or 9 of them. When they were planted, they had the 2 posts stuck in on one side with metal wiring holding them up and upright. Those were never removed. So most of the most mature trees were those maples. And the tree service that was on site said they were confident the girdling would kill the tree. One of those girdled trees was still there on site, and I asked them to save that. When the city arborist got out there, he thought the tree had a better chance of surviving than the arborist did. So a little bit of disagreement. But that being said, most of those red maples were planted as part of this pond original construction. Most of those, if not all of those, were girdled. So when we do this again the next time around, we'll be sure to plant trees and then not have them girdled in time.
Okay.
Did the arborist mention anything else, any other thoughts or concerns about the done or about what he's supposed to
The city arborist? No. I don't want to speak for VJ, but he seemed agreeable to moving forward with doing selective planting of trees behind his homes. For instance, one neighbor asked for a conifer that would, well, rather to not have a conifer because they were going to have solar panels up there eventually. VJ didn't have any additional comments. Most of the stuff back there was kind of shrubby trees, but those large mature ones were a bit of a loss.
And it's a pretty flat area, right? That was
Relatively
cut.
flat. There's a berm that works its way up to the pond berm, but that's relatively flat.
Are there any members of the public here to speak on this application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on 800 Pine Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Schramm here for 834 to 922. this, before I begin with that one, testimony, Scott, this was marked in your staff notes as for consent approval, but not on the consent agenda.
Yep, I was gonna mention that, AJ. Basically, the agenda was done before we determined that, but this one seems pretty cut and dry.
Okay, so I'll do this way. Does any members of the board have any questions on this application? No? Okay. We warned a public hearing, so I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand and swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter under consideration is true and correct under the pains and penalties of perjury. Okay. Do you have anything else to add? Seeing that this was
I'm
put on our
prepared to
consent
provide as
agenda
much
item.
background on the project as you may want, but I'd be happy to follow your lead and give you
No.
as much or little as you need.
No, I think, and the reason I'm opening this is we're going to probably deliberate on all of these together as one sort of combined package. And I do want to ask if there's anyone in the public here to speak on this application.
I have the budding property, and I'm just curious.
Okay, well, you should probably identify yourself for the record.
Absolutely.
And so why don't you do that and just state your name for the record and raise your right hand, swear that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct on the pains and
It
penalties.
is true. My name is Linda Bassick. I live at 838 North Avenue.
Okay, and do you have any questions for the applicant?
I don't.
Okay.
Just curious about what's happening. I've watched the work, and I'm happy that they got in there to handle it right away, because there was a huge sinkhole behind my house.
Great,
So
all right.
I'm curious about what they're going to do.
Okay, well,
I do see that a lot of trees came down, but I also see why they came down. I saw them.
all right.
And I'm curious about what's going to happen now.
All right, well, with that, if anyone has any other questions, I'll close the public hearing. We'll deliberate on that tonight with the rest of these items. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Should I stay up for the next item?
Yeah, I think you're up for the next one.
Okay.
So, the next item is ZP 22-617, 53 La Valley Lane, City Department of Public Works, Wastewater Department, Citywide Tree Maintenance Plan. And Mr. Schramm, you're here for this. You're still under oath.
Yep.
And I have a question for staff. Scott, can you the last tree maintenance plan we approved was 2016, and are they good? How long are they good for? 5 years?
5 years, yep.
We don't often get many of these. So would you just briefly explain what your new tree maintenance plan is and how it differs from your old one?
Sure. Just a little bit of background. James hit on this earlier, but in dealing with the North Ave sinkhole, the ZP 22-611 that we just closed on, and that was done under an emergency situation. That was an emergency repair of an existing failed stormwater structure. The fact that the earlier tree maintenance plan being expired came to light, and the need to renew it was front and center. So that's why these, the North Ave project and the plan are sort of coming forward at the same time, as well as the 08 pond. Probably not a big surprise when we started the drafting of this revised plan. We started with the one from 2016. Primarily, it has a lot of the same language in it. One of the main points I'll bring your attention to is the identification of emergency projects as a category for emergency projects. As you might see how it links back to that earlier project we referred to. Page 5 of the new plan says that if there's an emergency project as determined by the Director of Public Works, the project can consult with the city arborist, and there wouldn't be a need for a project-specific tree maintenance plan. So I think that is the largest substantive change in this plan compared to the one that was approved in 2016.
It's emergency repair / replacement projects. I'm assuming that's emergency repair / emergency replacement,
That's my
not
understanding,
just
so, yeah.
generally replacement projects.
Emergency repair and emergency replacement. is my
Okay.
understanding.
One can see how there's a
Yep,
difference.
I do.
Yep. Does the board have any questions on the tree maintenance plan? I mean, I like that we have one.
City arborist.
Right, we didn't have one for a while, didn't we?
Another change that comes to mind, the earlier plan, I believe, had an attachment that lists pre-approved arborists. There was a short list of other private arborists that were sort of identified as, an applicant could reach out to directly as if they had some type of pre-approval by the city. We chose to drop that from this version. So that's another change. If you went back and compared it side by side with the 2016 version, you would see.
I believe it also listed the current arborist by name.
That's
We pulled
correct.
out the name and just added city arborist.
Okay. If the city doesn't have an arborist in the next 5 years, what's the procedure?
I don't think I can answer that. I haven't thought through that.
Last
So the-
arborist stayed more than 30 years, so you didn't go too long in the term.
There, it's my understanding there may even be language that says, or the city arborist designate.
I did see that.
I can't speak for BPRW. I imagine someone would be responsible for all the street trees in the absence of a city arborist, and that's likely the staff would reach out to.
Yeah,
I don't think that
okay.
level of detail is codified in this plan.
I think it addresses the question, the way it's revised. The designee will be a certified arborist approved by the city arborist. So I'm assuming if somebody leaves, that'll get addressed, or we'll have to deal with that later. But other questions? No? Anybody in the public here to speak on this generally? No? You good? All right. So with that, I'll close the hearing on this item. And so those are our agenda items for the evening. The public hearing agenda items for the evening. I just lost my agenda. So Scott, I have a question about the agenda. You have listed the executive session before the adjournment and deliberation. Is that, do we have to do it that way? Or can we can we adjourn, deliberate, and then have the executive session?
I don't think we can adjourn. I think we have to go into executive session during a meeting.
During a meeting, yeah.
during-
Okay.
Correct.
We can do deliberative during the meeting.
We can do deliberative.
We just can't adjourn the meeting.
Okay. I think it would be good to do deliberative and then the executive session.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
I understand that. Hence, part of the reason.
Is the city attorney on the way?
Well, it's 6:01. You can stay, you just can't participate in deliberatives. So we'll close the public hearings, and I say we deliberate on the agenda items.
Yeah. Not adjourned.
Right. No. Right. We're not adjourning. So, first thing to deliberate on is the 170 Park Streets.
Can we say that no action is required on ZAP 22-5?
That it's moved.
Yep.
Yeah.
That appeal. I
Yep.
agree that
That
that's
no
moved.
action is required on it.
I mean, I think the action is that it's moot. Yeah.
So we would take action on it.
We have
We
to say
deny
that.
it as moot?
I think, well, it's justiciability doctrines, right? What we, right? You get dismissed as moot, right?
It's approved. We're not denying anything. We're just recognizing that it's.
Well, there's
not
an
public.
approval after,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, this actually came up the other week, this funny area where we could get an appeal, but the zoning administrator takes another action during the appeal.
That renders the appeal substance
Yeah.
moot.
We just need to clear it out somehow, right?
Well, I'm happy to make a motion if you feel you need to make
Yeah,
a
I think we
motion.
should,
Okay.
just so it's,
So I will move on, I don't have that number in front of me.
That's all right.
ZP.
Recording in progress.
This is ZP 22505, I think.
505 is the approval. I think this is ZP 22-5.
Okay, thank you. So in that matter, I move that we dismiss the appeal as moot, as the underlying application was ultimately approved by the zoning administrator.
Second, Caitlin, all those in favor? 22-596 is the variance request. I think the applicant made a very good presentation. However, I don't think it meets the standards for variance as I understand the law of variances. And no, it's fine. I think the law of variances is essentially the lot has to be, and I think this is the way the zoning ordinance is written, the lot has to be such that it is undevelopable without the variance being granted. And as much as I think the design presented in the variance request might be better, better is not the standard. It's basically, there's no alternative but to grant the variance. And unfortunately, there is an alternative on the variance, unfortunateness, and that's ZP 22505, which shows 3 parking spaces and lot coverage of 40%. It's not what the applicant desires, but it satisfies the ordinances.
And there are options that are not really unreasonable to, I think, meet the goal of better parking and 40% lot coverage.
Sorry, that was the issue of the shared driveway. That doesn't help.
I don't think so, because I don't think it is one of those really extreme lot conditions that prevent development such that a variance would be upheld under the law.
You should probably subtract some lot coverage from the shared aspect of the driveways.
Well, traditionally, it could be parked in. This is essentially, the way that I kind of see it is, this is a paved space that will necessarily contribute to 40%, but cannot be used.
When it's used as access.
Yes, and traditionally it would also be used as parking also. Also because one property has to count as access and the other doesn't, that strikes me as interesting. Also, the variance I believe is for about 1%, 0.9%, right? Okay. Yeah.
I think that helps. I think that actually hurts, the 0.9, because I think it's the kind of
Recording
thing
stopped.
that is, I've seen site plans start trimming lot coverage in creative ways around the edges when it's 0.9.
Yeah.
You start rounding corners, you start doing a few different things. And I'm not criticizing, that, but I've just seen that happen. Suddenly that parking driveway, there's a planted strip along this, there's a planted strip along that. It's frustrating, but at 100 square feet, you find the corners where that's the case.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm sympathetic, and I think it should be a good case for why this is a better plan. But I think even if we consider the shared access a unique physical circumstance, it wouldn't meet the standard of, because of that circumstance, there's no possibility the project can be developed in compliance. She has options. They're not desirable options, and maybe not better options, but the way the ordinance is written, she has options.
It goes to something Mary said in recent meetings as well. It's like, this is a ordinance change issue, not a DRB issue.
Yeah.
We're bound to apply.
And 40% lot coverage in this neighborhood is, somewhat low, to be honest. There's probably very few properties that come to that, so that's something that probably needs to be looked at as well. 'Cause I think it's a point that the neighbor has more, and that's probably historic, and yeah, it's historic nonconformity. So I'll make a motion on ZP 22596.
Recording in progress.
170 Park Street. We deny the request for a variance. Jeff seconds. All those in favor? All those opposed? Leo? 5-1. So that's that.
It's a good try.
It's a good try. Look,
Good presentation.
Recording
thank you.
stopped.
I would reach out to a member of the planning commission and discuss how the ordinance could be addressed to better clarify this and present some opportunities in your neighborhood for lot coverage exceedances for parking and transport. Members of the Planning Commission. Planning Commission.
I also took note of that, explaining, street of plants.
There's a recording as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, thanks. I know I'm not participating, but I basically wanted to bring your attention to this.
We appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we have 3 tree cutting items. One is ZP 22608, one is ZP 22611, and that's the North Avenue one, and there's the Pine Street one, and then we have the overall master plan.
I think it's helpful that we have all 3 of these together.
Yes, I
I don't
agree.
actually think that we need to consider them together necessarily, but they're helpful examples.
Yeah.
Because the first one, what is it? 608 at 800 Pine Street, that would not be an emergency one. The other
Right.
one would be emergency.
Correct.
And I thought that the master plan made sense, and I'm glad you clarified what if there is no.
Yeah,
City
there's no
arborist.
arborist.
And the whole repair/emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I read replacement, I was like, well, that doesn't really, yeah, so,
'Cause that would be my only concern, is if someone can just, if there's incentive to just declare something emergency to make it easier. But either way, the arborist is involved on all of those scenarios.
and they still have to provide notice to neighbors
Yeah.
under the tree warden statute. So, on ZP 22611, that was on our consent agenda item. I'll make a motion to approve that. That's the North Avenue one.
Second that.
Brad seconds.
Recording in progress.
I made the motion. Brad seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All right, that approves.
611.
Yep, that's 611. On ZP 22608, Scott had put it on to continue because there was some missing information. I think the applicant provided that information under testimony.
I agree.
Yeah? Leo, you were asking?
I was impressed that he seemed to so quickly contact the others. A good faith effort to rectify the situation.
So I think he's addressed the information, so with the testimony provided, and I will add one thing, that, and I'm gonna add this to the approval, that he testified that they were gonna do some replanting along the fence line, and I think a condition of our approval should be that replanting along the fence line is done, you know, and that's right, and provide a tree planting plan to staff for replanting along the fence line. So I'll make that motion. On ZP 22608, 800 Pine Street, I move that we approve the application with the condition that they replant the area by the fence as testified to and provide a replanting plan to staff. Brad seconds. All those in favor? All right, unanimous. All right, tree master.
Recording stopped.
Might as well start recording.
You want to keep talking? All right, go.
Recording in progress.
ZP 22617, that's 53 Valley Lane tree planting plan. Any issues?
Do you want your little?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's emergency repairs / emergency replacement in the plan.
But otherwise you're.
But but otherwise I'll move that we approve it. Yeah, let's keep it going.
Second.
Caitlin seconds. All those in favor? Aye, all right. So with that, we have wrapped up
Recording stopped.
our deliberative, and we'll enter executive session on motion to receive advice from our counsel on other matters before us.
So the recording stops.
So the recording stops, we're not on video,
And the applicant.
and
Use the
Marina.
restroom before we.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that too.
This is when you have to leave.
You have to leave now.
Thank you, though.
Otherwise, you could stay and